You know,
That is real.
yeah, speaking of growing fast, you have so many podcasts that are popping up. The latest one being the Wolfcast and all. Now, first of all, right, I'd like to ask if you get all these ideas and you are applying them to various industries, or are people coming to you and saying, hey, I would like to work with you, I need your skill set, and we're going to build this together?
So both,
Mm.
actually. But every podcast I do, so sometimes people will ask me, yeah, sorry, we used to have this joke at I'm trying to remember the name of this product that another firm had when I was back working in finance. Yeah, there was something called the death spiral bond.
What is that?
And I don't remember the particulars of it, but you know, a lot of people bought it and lost a lot of money.
Mm.
I'm laughing, but only because we used to joke on the trading desk, like it's in the name. It says death spiral. Like, what was your expectation?
So the name of the bond was really Death Spiral. I thought that was just a nickname.
I don't remember exactly, but I remember joking about this on the trading desk, and one of the guys was like, "It's in the name. It says death spiral bond. Like, what were your expectations?" So that phrase, like it's in the name, I can't get it out of my head. So sometimes people will ask me, "What's the Asia Tech podcast about?" I just think of the death spiral bond.
It's in the name.
If I have to explain it, it's probably not my problem, kind of thing.
Yeah. Going back to the point you made earlier on about when we were talking about getting guests to ask you questions, right?
Right.
Do you notice that is this something that is very peculiar to Asian culture, that they is either they're too shy to ask questions or they don't know how to ask questions?
So I think so two things can be true at the same time. I think that's actually true, but I've had plenty of people on the podcast that have not been from Asia, and I'd say like 80% of them don't understand how to ask questions properly. Not that they don't understand, but they're not comfortable in the format. They feel like a guest. Do you know what I mean? And because they are the guest, it's like me going to your house and you're making me dinner and me walking into the kitchen and going, Edric, no, a little too much salt, kind of thing. I think that's how people feel,
Ah,
right? So
okay.
it's not that they don't know. It's just that maybe they don't know in this format how to do it and make it feel natural to them. Like I could be a world-class chef, but I'm still not going to walk into your kitchen and go, you know, I think you're cooking that pasta a little too long. It's not my house, right? And I think that's the way most people feel. As a guest, which is what we call them, they're more comfortable just answering.
Right. And this has got something to do with guest prep. There was a book on podcasting that I actually read, and it was very important to actually send things like what your podcast is about, when it's going to be, what the frequency of
Right.
the publishing is, basically the details, and what are the questions that you'll probably be asking. And
Right.
this is the guest prep that tends to help a little bit, gives them a little bit of confidence. How do you prep your guests? I mean, you've received mine, so
I like to have a 10 or 15 minute call with a guest before they actually record. I highly encourage it actually. One, it makes them feel comfortable. Two, they can ask really important questions like, do I need a fancy setup? Should I go buy a microphone? Um, if I say something stupid, will you take it out? Who edits it? How much time do you want to do this? What's the format? All these questions that people have. I love having that prep call because by the time, and also remember, by the time we're done, we just had a 15-minute conversation with someone that you may or may not know yet. So now they're comfortable. And then if you do it right, if you do it really well, actually, now they're looking forward to coming on the show. Now they're as excited about being on the show as you are about having them on the show. I think there's some trepidation for some guests that they're going to get grilled. I've had people say to me, do I need to know the statistics in my monthly sales and my month over month growth? And I just say to them, like, nobody cares. That's not what this is about.
they're fearful of this guerrilla tactics that sometimes, or they get paranoid about certain things.
Well, I think they watch too much MSNBC and they're just afraid that someone's going to try to trap them in something. Like, well, originally you said you were building a company that does X and then you pivoted to this. Like, did your parents approve? Like, how could you get away with that kind of? Nobody cares.
Come sit back. Tell me about your father.
Yeah, exactly. Like, nobody cares about this stuff. So we don't do that. I do like to ask difficult questions, right? Because I'm curious. But again, because it's a conversation in my mind, and I run them through exactly the situation that I want them to understand that we're in when we're doing the recording. And I think that by the time we get there, it's really great. I don't think it's actually necessary to, and again, it depends on the type of guest, to give them questions beforehand, because I don't want to have it be rote.
Yeah, correct. I mean, we talked about this earlier on as well, that it's a 50-50 thing. If you give it to them, for some, they want to be extremely prepared.
Right.
And then it comes out being very scripted. And for others, if they don't get prepared, then there are so many ums and ahs, and our 2-hour podcast becomes an hour.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually, what's the right word? I'm not disappointed by some of the speech patterns that you encounter when you have a guest on. They're not trained to do this.
Right.
And I think as a host, I have to be I think as a set of hosts, have to be very forgiving about speech patterns. One of the reasons why I edit so heavily, and people make fun of me for this, they're like, you're too anal about the editing. And I always say, I want my guests to sound as smart as they really are. And if removing the hesitation from their speech makes it sound like they know their domain, that they have the domain knowledge that they definitely do have, otherwise they wouldn't be there. If that helps them out, I'm willing to take the time to do it, because that's important to me.
Absolutely.
Right. And remember, but this is also really important to me. And I think part of this comes from living out of my home country for 30 something years, is that sometimes a lot of the people that I interview, English is not their only language. So I have to give them a ton of credit. You know, I do this show eCommerce Undercover with a guy whose native language is French. And, you know, Martin and I joke around about, hey, let's do the next show in French. And he'll say it to me in French. But it's true. And I say to him, that's fine as long as we do the following show in Japanese. Right?
Okay. Yeah. And that's an asset to you, because for those who don't know, you stayed in Japan for quite a while, didn't you?
22 years.
Yeah, that's quite a while. And speaking of which, I know I jump around a lot, but I really do want to know, from Japan, how did you end up just, saying, okay, Thailand's a nice place, I'll come here? I mean, it's not like it's okay. Look, presumptuously, people are going to say, oh, yeah, okay, Thailand, right? Yeah, okay, party capital.
What are they going to say?
Yeah, party
say?
nightlife. Yeah. Exactly. But why did you really choose Thailand?
In 1998, I went on a pre-honeymoon trip. And actually, let me just back up for a second. Some of my friends when we were younger actually went from Japan to Thailand. And I'm talking about really young. We were like 25 or 26. Mm-hmm. And back then there was a reputation that Thailand had, which even to today, I still don't agree that that's actually real. There are pockets of every country where you can go and do things that are silly. Mm-hmm. They just are. I mean, I used to have to walk through Times Square every day on my way to Morgan Stanley, for God's sakes. I'm not sure there's anything in Thailand that rivals what was going on in Times Square in 1988.
I was there in 1988. Yeah.
Yeah. If you'd been there, like, I saw dead guys on the street. I saw people get mugged. Like, it was really dangerous. I've never experienced that in Thailand, not once. And I've never felt danger. But I didn't go on that trip. But when I decided to get married, I came here on like a pre-honeymoon trip. And one of the reasons why I came here was because another of my friends had traveled to Bangkok for business and had said to me, before you die, you have to stay at the Oriental in Bangkok. It's the most amazing hotel in the world. It's consistently the top rated hotel in the world. I'd never heard of it. And the firms where we worked had corporate rates there. So you could stay at a 5-star hotel and get 5-star service, be on the Chao Phraya River. The first money that I paid there was $125 a night. And it was just insane. It was so amazing. And that trip, we drove from Bangkok to Chiang Mai to Chiang Rai, and just had an incredible trip. And kind of fell in love with what was going on here. So much so that we kept coming back. I moved here in 2011. That was what? 14 years, 13 years before? I'd say in the interim period of time, we came to Thailand 7 or 8 times on vacation, and almost always around New Year's. We made some great friends around the pool at the Oriental. And one of my buddies from Goldman Sachs was living here. So periodically we'd go visit him in his office and in his apartment. And he said, dude, you should move here. Best medical care in the world. My daughter was in international school, the best international schools in the world. And it's safe. And there's great business going on here. And when the Fukushima earthquake hit in Tokyo, and I think I told you this offline, but we didn't understand the food chain. My daughter was 10. There was no way I was letting her go through puberty in a place where I didn't understand like what the impact of radiation was going to be on her through the food. Yeah, I wasn't worried about airborne radiation at all.
Right.
And I looked for places to live. And I thought about Taiwan or Korea because I didn't want to leave Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And I also looked at Hong Kong and Singapore. But it's impossible for someone like I am to go to Hong Kong or Singapore unless you work for, Goldman Sachs or Citigroup.
Right.
Because there's no value there. I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean the places where I would live and the school where I'd have to send my daughter is are squeezed higher because no one's paying for it. When most of the foreigners at international schools have that school paid for by their company. So they're indifferent to price. Right, and that's one of the reasons why, it's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why, condos and houses and apartments in Singapore are so expensive.
Yep.
Because most of the high-end people that live there don't pay for them. And if they're senior executives, what do you think their monthly housing allowance is?
I wish I knew.
Well, I do know.
Oh.
But that pushes the price higher. My last housing allowance in Tokyo was $15,000 a month.
No, come on. That's what some people make that's what some people back then in Thailand would make in a year.
More, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I came to Thailand alone, so I didn't come here for work. So I was not an expat here, but I was an expat in Tokyo, and I would have to have competed for schools and for other services with expats in Hong Kong and in Singapore. It just didn't make any sense. And when I went and looked around in Bangkok, it just made perfect sense to me. Like I said, the international schools here are part of CSAC sites. I can't remember anymore. But like NIST, where my daughter graduated with a bilingual IB degree, is just as good as UWC. No difference. As a matter of fact, they play sports against each other. So it's the same thing. The British school here is amazing. ISB is world class. The facilities are unbelievable. So moving to Bangkok seemed like a natural, plus day-to-day life has super value.
My brother was from ISB.
Say it again?
My brother was in ISB back when we stayed there. Yeah. We lived in Bangkok from 1987, 86 or 87, and back in Singapore in 89.
Yeah. So your brother went to the campus. Your brother went to the campus on Soi 15.
Yep. I was in Ekamai.
Yeah, Ekamai International School. Right, but so you can see, and then there's Bangkok Prep, which is now huge. St. Andrews, all these great schools here. So that was one of the reasons why we felt super comfortable living here. Plus, I wasn't working, so I wasn't earning any money, and just the value for the money was the best place. By far. I would still encourage people to move here because it's an incredible place to live. And from a startup ecosystem standpoint, I think it's almost better than anywhere else in this region. But again, I'm biased, right? Because I'm here.
I agree with you. The startup scene in Thailand is something amazing. When I used to go there for business trips, just to meet up with some of the new startups and on the e-commerce, logistics, transport, and freighting side of things, these guys were making so much headway in the way that they were able to bring the tech together, be whether or not it's going to be something that was very niched or it's an integrator or aggregator of sorts. There were so many that were just coming up. And even if you look at, let's say, for example, the e-commerce club or, the e-logistics club or the Thai e-commerce association, and even the grants that are coming out from
The
DIBA.
NIA, the BOI,
That's right.
DEPA.
Deep, yeah. So it's great. They have amazing grants, and that's what brought them to Singapore to be able to exhibit with us at the time. That was great.
But
Yep.
tell me
Sorry,
why
you
you
were
think
saying
that's the case. No, it's okay. Tell me why you think that's the case. Like
regarding.
why would living in Bangkok be conducive to that type of development?
I think it gives you a real lay of the land, a real feeling, a pulse on everything. If you were to do it remotely, on the other hand, you don't necessarily understand the people, the culture, and the way that how these startups are built up, and why the kind of necessity that comes from it.
Right. So here's my take. I get to ask the question and then I get to answer it.
Great.
But here's my take on this. And that is, if you build something in Singapore, let's say you build something like, I don't know, Red Mart, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Red Mart's a really interesting company. I don't know if you remember how it started.
I have no idea.
No, I was just laughing about you muting the microphone. Anyway, but Red Mart, was supposed to be online grocery delivery, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's great. And Singapore's a great market to do that. But you don't have to solve too many logistical problems. And you don't have to solve too many. Remember, this is all relative. They had to solve plenty of problems. And the guys that built that were very smart and knew what they were doing. But I'm talking in relative terms. The roads in Singapore are pretty clean.
Yep.
They're very well organized. And there's not that much traffic. Now, Singaporeans might argue, oh my God, it's always traffic, but it's nothing like it is in Bangkok and Jakarta.
Oh, please. Try the Philippines, try Indonesia, try
Right.
anywhere else. Oh my God.
So you have to solve fewer problems in Singapore. And also the problems that you do solve are not, they're not transferable to Bangkok.
Yep.
Because you can take the Red Mart model and try to bring it to Thailand or to Bangkok, and you're going to have to relearn everything. So that's why I think building a business in Bangkok, particularly one like eCommerce, or particularly one that has a logistics aspect to it, means that then you can go to the rest of Southeast Asia, because all of the problems that you have to solve here are in some way transferable to Jakarta and to Ho Chi Minh and to, Hanoi and Manila.
Yep.
Because it's structurally very hard, not to mention the payments, right? Like I have a green screen behind me and I paid cash on delivery for it because you still can.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I can't remember where I bought it. Maybe it was Lazada. I can't remember, but I just paid COD. You have to be able to pay COD in Thailand.
Yep. It's still a big thing. A couple of years ago during one of the conferences, it was they were mentioning that in the Philippines, right? It was people still they only had ATM cards. They did not have debit or credit cards. So everything was still COD. And you cannot imagine all these delivery guys, right? The couriers and all that, who are carrying tens of thousands of dollars in cash a day and running around. I mean, how is that secure for them? How is that safe for them? Which means that, these guys have to be like delivery and Brinks all together.
Okay, so this is a really good point. I had the same thought that you did. And I remember asking Paul, right, Savronakun, one of the founders of eCommerce,
eCommerce.
As they were starting to build that business, I said, you're going to have people delivering iPhones to somebody's house. Like, tell me how that's not going to get stolen. This is the jaded Tokyoite, right, talking.
Uh-huh.
And he said, well, Michael, you don't understand. He said, let me explain it to you. That delivery guy, first of all, he said this. He said, you know that in Asia, family is very important. And the motorbike that guy rides, he cannot afford to buy by himself.
Mm-hmm.
So his family chips in. So his uncle put in 2,000 baht, his aunt put in 5,000 baht, his sister put in some money. And he's doing that job, and he's also paying them back, but he's the face of their family. And if he steals something, he doesn't just embarrass himself, he embarrasses the whole family. And he also lets them down. Right? And the other thing they did was they took a small deposit. I think back then it was like 20,000 baht. So the family would put together that deposit. so that he could become a motorcycle driver, a delivery guy. And if he stole something, he would lose that deposit. That's not his money either. And this is generalizing, right? Every guy or gal is not like this.
Right.
But there are these little sort of social mechanisms in place that won't allow him to steal it. And that's what makes cash on delivery possible. It's not the only thing. Most people won't steal, but the people that are maybe inclined to can't because their family will torch them. And they'll lose face for their family for the rest of their lives. That's why they can ride around with like 5 iPhones and, $2,000 in their pocket and not steal it. Not the only reason why, but that's one of the social mechanisms in place to prevent that or to interdict it. Yeah. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that does make sense. The Thai people are very honorable people, I have to say.
I think all people are honorable. I really do, because I do think most people care about their family.
Do you find yourself to be more of an optimist or more of a realist?
What do you think?
I think you're an optimist.
I can't help it. I try to be a realist every day, but the optimism gets in the way.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I understand what you mean, because my wife says the same thing about me. How is it that you can still see good things in these people who are irritating the hell out of us? I'm like, because I can. I don't need a reason.
I mean, I can identify the bad people for sure.
And
there are plenty of them out there. Yeah.
Oh, plenty.